Good morning, my friends. Let the morning light bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Show me the way I should go. And I can't remember the second part of that one. That's my morning verse. That's my morning verse. Anybody else have a verse or a scripture that has been your mantra, for lack of a better word, during this summer? So, while it keeps hearing, be still and know. Yeah. So once, yes. So once we hear it somewhere, and this happens to me too a lot with the Psalms, then we see it in all other places, hear it in other places, memes on Facebook, songs that we hear. So I think that's one of those amazing things, how the Holy Spirit brings that to our memory. Once we begin to meditate on the Word, I think that's how the Word comes back to us. So my title for today's lesson is I have the final word, but not really. So we have one more Sunday. Next Sunday, I'm really excited about this. Twyla is going to lead our class in Psalms and Songs, which just seems like a really appropriate way to end this series. A very good fit. I agree. So when the elders were doing their planning for the classes for the year, they do that in advance, and they asked me if I would put together lessons on the Psalms and bring people in. I said yes, and then afterwards, I'm like, what did I get myself into? And yeah, so what are you doing, JJ? Deuteronomy? Oh yeah, really? It's like, oh, what have I got myself into? And now I got to tell you, we're 1 week before the end, and I wish we had more time. And so, what I want to do, I know y'all, the rest of y'all are like me. We just all have terrible memories, but I want to start at the very beginning and just kind of do an overview of some of the things that we have talked about this summer. And I want y'all to, I'm going to give time for you to be able to say if you can remember something 2 weeks ago, much less 10 weeks ago. If there was something in your study or maybe in that lesson that's really kind of stuck with you, I'd really like for you to share that. So we started on June 12th with just an overview of the Psalms, how they were put together, kind of the time frame on that. And then the next week, the 19th, we talked about the lament psalms. And so, what I hope for us learning about the lament psalms is that those psalms give us words in our sorrow. And most of the lament psalms end in a resolution, not necessarily positive, end in a resolution of, but I will trust in God. There is one that does not. But I remember after, excuse me, after that class, Lawrence came up to me and he said, what we have that the Jews didn't have when this was part of their canon, part of their worship, is Jesus. And Jesus is the resolution to our lament. And I really thank you for that, Lawrence, because it's easier for me to get in the lament and stay in the lament when I'm reading those Psalms. And then once you said that, then when I would look at a lament psalm, then I would think, but I'm on this side of the cross. And so there's resolution to my lament. So thank you for that, Lawrence. Any other comments on the laments? They're so validating. They are. Yeah, it does make it okay to lament. Oh, yeah, it does. Because I told y'all my mother is Pollyanna. So there's always, you can't say anything negative without her going, but The positive side is that sometimes you just want to be sad in your sadness. So, um, any other comments on laments? Okay. And then the third week, which was June 26th, um, we played in the Psalms. That was, well, y'all know anybody that teaches these classes, you know, you learn more, you have more fun in it than anybody else. Oh my gosh, that one was so much fun to me. So if you recall, we had multiple readings. There was a reading where um, JJ was the prophet. We used Psalm 107 for that. JJ was the prophet. Twyla was the cantor, so she sang her part, and we were the chorus, and we spoke our part. That was just a lot of fun. It was fun to me to be able to be creative in the Psalms, and that's what I want to invite you to continue to do, is to find some creativity in your reading of the Psalms. And then um, Psalm 104, Gary and Cheryl read for us, and Cheryl read the scriptures to God, and Gary read the scriptures about God. And that's part of what we have to do when we're looking at the Psalms is, you know, what direction is this voice going? Because it switches back and forth, and if we don't pay attention, we don't see that. So I loved, and this has been part of it for me, and I hope for y'all too. In hearing your voices read the Psalms just brings it to life for me. You know, I can read it in my mind, and I might sometimes read it out loud to myself, but to hear your voices, I just love that. I just think it was beautiful. It just really brought it to life for me. And then on July 3rd is when Lawrence used Psalm 96 and Psalm 98 about the references to the new song. And these are the things I hope that you continue to remember about these classes is Lawrence sang a Black spiritual for us, and we sang the amen part, and I just thought that was really just beautiful. I loved that. And then that lesson made me start to some of these lessons that some of you taught, that made me start thinking about things more. So after your lesson, Lawrence, I kept thinking about what's the new song? What's the new song we sing? The new song we sing is Glory to the Lamb, of course. And I think about that song that we sing that has the great bass and all that. I sing to heaven a new song of Jesus and the Lamb. Is that it? I don't. How's that one go, Twyla? Yeah. So it made me. It's called a new song, and so it made me think about what are the new songs that we sing today. And then what I did is I mentioned to y'all that I took a couple of classes when I was in seminary on the Psalms, and one of the things that we had to do in one of the classes is we had to spend some time, at least 3 days a week, reading a psalm, meditating on it, and then just writing whatever we thought about that psalm. And that really was the class. Those were the classes that got me really interested in the Psalms. And so I found some notes that I had on Psalm 98. And if you want to look at that one with me, I just want to share this, my personal observation of Psalm 98. I think part of what I've learned also, especially when we went through the Shabbat liturgy, is and in reading some of the Jewish liturgy, is they take out of the chapter, the verses that are most relevant, which helps me because there's some verses in there that are like kingdom talk and war and that kind of thing. It doesn't speak to me, but then there's these other beautiful verses in there. So I just pull out the verses that really work for me. And that's what I did in Psalm 98. And so this is the one that starts with "Sing to the Lord a new song." So this is the imagery that I want to share with you on Psalm 98 and how I want to encourage you to play in the Psalms. Have you ever seen a picture of the Red Rock Amphitheater in Colorado? It's amazing. 25 years ago, I was there with my sister and we saw Lyle of it there. And it's an amazing place. So in my mind's eye, this is what I see. I see the Red Rock Amphitheater and I see a full audience of people and an orchestra, full orchestra on the stage. Okay. And then they have the lights on the red rocks behind. That's the visual I want you to have. And so the audience begins to sing this. God has done marvelous things. By his strength, he has saved us. Everyone knows about it. Not only does he save us, he saves the whole world. And now the instruments start to play. The orchestra plays loudly as we sing even more loudly. The harps sing their praise to God. The trumpets and ram's horns blast our praise to God. And as if that is not enough, then creation joins the chorus and the red rocks begin to sing with us also. The seas and everything that live in them resound their praise to God. The world and every animal and plant sing praise to God. The rivers clap their hands. The mountains, the red rocks, stand tall and sing for joy. So that was my meditation based on reading that psalm. And that only happens when you take the time to sit in it. You know, it's one of those things we just have to sit in it. I had to do it because it was an assignment. So it helped me. But you can if we use our imagination, we can make the Psalms come to life. So, Lawrence, when you were teaching about Psalm 98 in the new song, I was thinking about that. You know, and to me, part of the new song is actually witnessing creation sing praise to God, which is an amazing thing if we think about it. And creation does sing praise to God in its beauty. You know, it does in the world around us, in the trees, in the animals, in the sky, in the sunset, in the clouds are all singing praise to God by their beauty, if we are just willing to stop and see that. Any thoughts or comments on about Lawrence's lesson on the new song? I really enjoyed that, Lawrence. Thank you for doing that. That just made that come to life for me by you singing and also sharing what you did. Yeah, will you talk to the mic? Thank you.
The thing I would point out about the orchestra that you imagined is that it talks about a ram's horn and shouting. This was not a quiet celebration.
Mm-mm.
I don't know if you've ever heard one of those things, but you could hear them for miles.
Yeah.
And so there's a time for quiet, respect when there's a time for joy, and the joy needs to be loud.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the week after that was July. Any other comments? I don't want to move on too quickly. So the week after that was July the 10th, and that was when I shared the audio from my colleague, Rabbi Beryl Anna, and the Shabbat liturgy. Once again, that was just really fun for me to see how she's in the Reformed tradition, how they use the Psalms in their corporate worship. So that was fun getting to hear all of you read that. So just as a reminder, it started with Psalm 150, then we read 95 through 99, and then 29. And it was just fun reading through that. And there were a couple of poems too that are in their liturgy. And then seeing it in the Hebrew also, and hearing Anna um, talk about it in the Hebrew, read about it. And then to me, the thing was, we spent all that time doing that, and that is when Jen comes up and does the welcome. That's what that was. That was not even okay. Now it's time to start worship. That was just the warm up. So there you go. Any thoughts or comments on the Shabbat liturgy? Okay. And then Dave did 2 weeks on July 14th, 17th, and 24th. Talked to us about Psalms 113 through 118, which are called the Halal Psalms, or they're the Psalms that were used in the Passover, in their Passover ritual. And I loved hearing that again. I loved thinking about, and so in my mind, Fiddler on the Roof is what comes to my mind in that. And the video where the mothers are lighting the candle and doing this with the candle, which is traditionally what happens in the Passover meal, is the mother lights the candle, or the oldest female lights the candle to begin that psalm service. And then to think about how we have in black and white the psalms that they sang or read during their Passover feast in the different times. Um, and the thing that came to my mind after that, after those lessons, was it made me wonder. Jesus talks about the cup. Well, actually, in the Passover ritual, there's 4 cups that are served, right, Dave? 4 cups. And so then it made me think, in the Gospels, we just talk about Jesus breaking the bread and sharing the cup, 1 cup. But then it made me think about, okay, what if we had a communion devotional where we shared 4 cups, where we each had 4 cups, and what would be said with each of those cups, and using those psalms. So we need to work on that, Dave. I think that'd be fun to work on. But then what I thought about also was, after Jesus and the disciples had their Last Supper together, they sang a hymn, and they went to Mount Olives. What did they sing? Did they sing one of these psalms? All of these, at least one of them. And then I started looking at, let me get entangled here. I started looking at Psalm 118. And I started thinking about Jesus singing this one, or Jesus as he's praying, thinking about the words in this psalm being part of his anguish and his sweat drops, sweat like blood. And some of the verses in here just leapt out at me that would be things that Jesus was thinking in order to shore up his courage for what he was about to face. Verse 6, the Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? The Lord is with me. He is my helper. I will look in triumph on my enemies. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. And I'm imagining Jesus thinking about that as he's trying to remember God is with me in this. As hard as this is going to be, God is with me. I will not be afraid. And verse 13, I was pushed back and about to fall, but the Lord helped me. Made me think about, when the Judas and the men came to get Jesus and Peter cut the guy's ear off and so they were trying to stop what he was, or trying to get him to stop what he was going to do. I was pushed back and about to fall, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength and my song. There's another song reference. He has become my salvation. And then looking at verse 17, I will not die, but live, and will proclaim what the Lord has done. Is that not what Jesus did for us? I mean, he did die, but he lives and proclaims what God has done. The Lord has chastened me severely, but he has not given me over to death. And then verse 22, when I read this, I think about this reference that is made about Jesus in the New Testament. The stone the builders rejected has become the capstone, which is Jesus. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So to me, that's just another way of, if we sit in the Psalms and think about in certain contexts, especially the context of Jesus singing these psalms or saying these psalms before he was crucified. It's just really powerful. It's really powerful to me. So thank you for sharing those, Dave, again, afresh. You've taught on that before, but it's just fresh to me each time. So appreciate that. And then on July 31st, Gary shared Psalm 37 with us. And I hadn't noticed this before. Gary reminded us that this psalm really sounds more like Proverbs than it does a poem, or some of the other psalms do. And it made me think, and you mentioned this, Gary, which made me think about it. Did Solomon learn his wisdom from his father? Did David have all these little sayings that he said to Solomon when he was growing up that helped Solomon learn how to put his wisdom literature together? I thought that was good. So, and then Gary modeled for us some creativity in writing his own acrostic with A and B. So Gary's challenge to us was, and continues to be, take some time and sit down and write an acrostic and be creative. Gary said, Z, you can say, zebras leap to joy in your praise. That one will be probably the verse that we all write for Z. But seriously, what Gary would like to do, if some of us would write an acrostic, a psalm, praise, in the form of an acrostic and give it to Gary, then you can sign your name on it or not. then he will find ways to share that with all of us so that we can be edified by each other's psalms. Okay. So that's project number one. And then August 7th and 14th is when, wasn't it just awesome, Patricia? When she helped us understand how about being rooted from a botanical perspective. That I'm such a visual person that just really that those lessons I really loved. Being able to, first of all, having an opportunity for Patricia to be able to speak to us and share her knowledge and put it all in a Christian context, also in biblical wisdom. Um, and then, but tying all of that to the Psalms and then using botanical themes that can be applied to our faith life using that grid that she gave us. And so now, even as I just thumb through the Psalms, now I'm seeing things, about the plants or, the things of the creation world just pop out and come alive to me now because of what Patricia has shared with us. I wish, and this is one of those, I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time in addition to what she shared, even to talk about the creation Psalms, because there are some Psalms that just talk about creation, how God created, the beauty of creation, how creation praises God. So I wish we had some more time. That's one of those things I wish we'd been able to dig in a little bit more too. And then Twyla next week is going to share with us some Psalms and songs. It's going to be fun. So the things that I had hoped that we would do this summer were read the Psalms more, try to memorize a verse or two, maybe begin your day or end your day with a verse or a psalm, share our journey with each other. Some of you, obviously, our teachers have done that. Some of you have shared psalms that were meaningful to you. I know Carrie did, and Karen did also. I had hoped that we would sing some psalms, so we're going to do that next Sunday. I had hoped that we would write our psalms, write some psalms, and loosen up and have some fun. So Gary's encouraged that. I'm going to encourage you here in just a minute to do that. Some of the things that we didn't get around to this summer, if we'd had more time, or because I had asked us to really try not to Christianize the Psalms, to stay in it in the ways that the Jews would have been in it. But there are verses that foreshadow Jesus. There are verses that Jesus used from the Psalms when he was on the cross. Another thing we didn't really get to talk about was how we can use the Psalms for our own prayers. But I think by being and playing in them like we have, I think, everybody has seen how you can pick out verses here and there and formulate our prayers. Let me see what else I wanted to say. Yes, there's always next summer. Don't hold my feet to the fire, Doc. So my first question to you is this. Okay, Jen, I'm going to start with you. You were very honest at the very beginning. You said you have a hard time reading through the Psalms. And I get that. Do you feel like I really am putting you on the spot here. Do you feel like you, maybe by the way we've approached it with a lot of different ways, found a different way to be able to see the Psalms? Be honest.
Yes. No, for sure. Definitely I have. And I'm definitely more embracing of them and more comfortable them when I have my training wheels on, which is you guys. Alone, I feel no more attracted to the Psalms than before, but through you guys and with your help, I do.
Yeah. No, that's valid. Good. And that was the purpose of this, was together. We do. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody have a new perspective, different perspective? Have the Psalms come alive a little bit more to you? Have you felt a little freer in the Psalms? Anybody else? Mike. Yeah, Gerald's. He's there.
I want to echo a little bit something that Jen just said. My typical view of the Psalms have always been introspective and trying to figure out for myself things that the Psalms had to teach. I really like it as a corporate activity. I did not realize how much I was going to enjoy that. It's one thing to sing them in a song, and it's one thing to actually have a class occasionally about it. But I think our approach this time was more congregational, and I thought that was really good. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you. Yes, speak.
One of the things about this study that I think has been helpful is Psalms feel, I mean, there's 150 of them. They're monolithic. They feel like they're inaccessible to some degree. But the work that you led us through to think about them individually with different aspects and the hearing it from different voices and understanding how they're used in other worship contexts was really helpful to me to begin to see them more individually and specially, each of them for their own value without just being overwhelmed by the mass of them.
Yes.
So that was good. Thank you.
Well, and that that helped me, instead of trying to see it as a whole book, just to pull out Psalms here and there. Yes. Go ahead, Twyla.
So, interestingly enough, I'm really glad that you brought out the part about they sang a hymn and left. You know, I've always wondered what that was. And in my mind, it was this so silly and crazy, but it was always, what song, you know, would I have known the song? Would we have known? Is it in our book? What page number? 728B? I mean, you know, it was what, I kind of put it in that context of today, but when, you know, we went through that, Dave, and we walked through, the songs that would have been sung at Passover, and that's likely what they would have sung. That meant a lot to me, something I never really realized before. And the other thing that it really got me thinking is the words, and it's so strange because I never thought about Jesus singing. And that just kind of brought that home to me that, oh my goodness, he sang too, so that's just kind of cool. So I really appreciate. They don't show that in the movie. Anyway,
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Twyla, for sure. Join in, JJ.
So here's a little tidbit for you as I'm prepping for Deuteronomy.
Awesome.
Something I read across that I hadn't really picked up on. Moses wrote and sang a song. It's pretty interesting.
You going to talk about
that?
You going to talk about that?
I'm sure we will.
Good.
But not today. Anyway, it's just interesting to me that song occurred early on and was pretty remarkable, meaningful. Very interesting how those things show up.
Yeah, it is interesting how things show up. Miriam did too. Oh, y'all, we're running out of time. I just invite you to continue to look in the Psalms. I still continue to invite you to look into your Psalms with your hard copy, because you will see things where verses tie in together, or like Lawrence with Psalm 96 and 98 tied in together. The same passage is said in each one. Antoinette told me earlier this summer that the sermon at her church had been on Psalm 106. I wrote this down, and she said, basically, don't forget, this leads to that. And so I looked at Psalm 106, and it's, we gave no thought to your miracles. We forgot what God had done. And there's this theme, we forgot what God had done. So God, beep, 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 did whatever. And it's just full of that. We forgot, so God did these things, or allowed these things to happen. But then at the end, there is but. So it's like, we forgot, so this happened, but God took note of their distress, and he remembered. So they forgot. He remembered. And it's just those little tiny nuances that I think we see when we see it all in black and white. So, oh gosh, y'all, there's just not enough time. So here is what I would like for us to do. And there's not time to do it today. I want each one of you, y'all out there in the foyer too, to take a card. And what I've done is I've just skimmed through the Psalms and found lead-ins. And I want you to write, I'll just give you an example here. I will praise you, O Lord. I would like for you to write at least one more sentence, preferably two more. I would love for you to give back to me, maybe next week, next Sunday, for this line plus 3 lines. And I have written down a bunch of them. I'd like for you to just randomly take one. But what I did is I put, if you pick one that just does not speak to you, or you're just having a hard time coming up with something, I have the list of all of them, and you can pick out one that you want. I just wanted us to have a variety, because what Gary and I would like to do, Gary would like for you to write an acrostic. I just want you to write 3 verses minimum. You can write more if you want to. And then we want to put these together as the Western Hills. These are going to be Psalm number 151 and 152. And the little inscription at the top is going to say, from Western Hills Church. Okay? Because I would just love to be able to read in church our psalm, our new song. So, all right, I'm going to disconnect. Yes. So I praise you, oh God, because you brought us rain today, which made your creation sing with green grass. You can tell. No. Okay. Thank you for asking. No. But you may think of another verse, or you may see another verse in Psalms that goes with this. Write it. It doesn't matter. I'm soliciting your personal. Thank you for asking, because obviously I didn't explain that very well. I'm looking for your personal reaction to this. If you were writing a psalm and this were your first line in your psalm, what would follow? Okay. And like I said, it may not speak to you. One thing that I asked, well, I took that from one of the Psalms, so you can do whatever. God is the Lord has May your name be glorified. So I just picked out random ones. Okay. So I just want you to, if you were going to contribute to a psalm being written, if you were going to write a psalm and that was your first line, what would the rest of it say?